Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Star Trek, the original series Season 1 is packed with classic episodes, Where No Man Has Gone Before, The Naked Time, Arena, Space Seed, The City on the Edge of Forever. One that often gets overlooked in that conversation is The Devil in the Dark, which remains a highlight not just of Star Trek's debut season, but of the groundbreaking 1960s series overall. One person who didn't overlook the virtues of The Devil in the Dark was Captain Kirk himself. William Shatner's 1993 autobiography listed the episode as the actor's favorite, while Leonard Nimoy has expressed similarly warm sentiments. As great as The Devil in the Dark may be, however, it made a mistake by omitting one of the Enterprise's most iconic figures. On the surface, Star Trek's The Devil in the Dark follows a familiar sci-fi format, whereby a monster is misunderstood and treated as a villain, when the situation really calls for compassion, understanding, and communication. The concept was more unique, although still not entirely original, thanks Frankenstein in 1967 compared to today. But the episode's real strength lies in execution, not originality. Across all of sci-fi, few stories have captured the essence of the misunderstood monster trope quite as effectively as Star Trek's The Devil in the Dark, and one of the biggest reasons for that is the characters involved. Much of the core cast gets sidelined in order to focus primarily on Captain Kirk, Spock, and Dr. McCoy. By this point in Star Trek, the playfully antagonistic dynamic between that trio had been firmly established, and the events of The Devil in the Dark brought it to the fore beautifully. Cleverly, The Devil in the Dark puts Spock in the less familiar position of being the heart of the three characters, not the head. The Vulcan's ability to mind meld with the Horde gives it access to the creature's feelings, while McCoy and the miners on Janus VI only see a monster that needs to be killed. It's a fascinating flip that really cements Spock as the core of Star Trek, the original series' Enterprise crew. The moral conflict leads to compellingly difficult moments. Kirk pulls rank by ordering McCoy to heal the Horde, but only after spending most of the runtime trying to kill the beast. There's an environmental allegory in how the miners have disturbed an innocent life, and Star Trek challenges its audience to feel sympathy for a faceless blob of rock, a feat The Devil in the Dark only pulls off by virtue of being skillfully written. The Devil in the Dark created an unwanted piece of Star Trek history during the 1960s, becoming the only episode with no speaking parts for female characters. Between the featured members of the Enterprise crew and the miners calling for help, this Star Trek adventure completely sidelines women in a disappointing one-off for the franchise. The 1960s was certainly a different time in terms of how female characters were depicted on screen. Star Trek, the original series, features its fair share of one-dimensional damsels in distress, not to mention gratuitous shots of Orion dancers, and so forth. Even taking the era into consideration, however, Gene Roddenberry's vision of Starfleet was still intended as a society where gender equality was the norm. No women speaking across an entire episode of Star Trek was, therefore, not just problematic from a real-world perspective, but a betrayal of the show's fictional universe. This issue was subsequently addressed, and while there was clearly work to be done in terms of building strong female characters, Star Trek, the original series, would avoid similarly egregious oversights in future scripts. Weirdly, the solution to resolving the gender imbalance within The Devil in the Dark was right there: Uhura. During Star Trek, the original series, it wasn't unusual for some of the Enterprise crew's secondary members to skip an episode or two. Indeed, Uhura and Sulu are both absent for The Devil in the Dark. But given that the episode's entire Horta problem boils down to an inability to communicate, and Uhura is the ship's communications officer, she should have been an obvious inclusion. Perhaps Uhura could have made a failed attempt to decipher recordings of the Horta's noises, then suggested to Spock that reaching into the creature's mind was the only way to understand it. Rather than Spock alone deducing the Horta's peaceful intentions, the discovery might have been a collaborative effort between the Enterprise's science and communication divisions, emphasizing the need for both when dealing with strange alien life forms. As mentioned previously, The Devil in the Dark does benefit from focusing more intensely on Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, with the story standing on the shoulders of that three-way partnership. Nevertheless, including Uhura as an advisor to Spock needn't have interfered with the episode's winning formula. Indeed, Uhura and Spock working together would have deepened a relationship that has only become more important in the decades after Star Trek, the original series. William Shatner has said many times that his favorite Star Trek, the original series episode, is The City on the Edge of Forever. Many fans agree. It's the one TOS episode even most casual Star Trek watchers know. Edith Keeler, the guardian of forever. Kirk's impossible choice. It's regarded as not just top-tier Trek, but one of the great science fiction hours ever aired on network television. But here's the wild part few fans talk about. The version Shatner loves, the version the world knows, was heavily rewritten, rearranged, and in the process, a major Enterprise crew member was essentially erased, and if not erased, permanently downgraded from the original story's importance. The original Harlan Ellison script for The City on the Edge of Forever, the one Trek historians and Shatner himself have read and commented on, was wildly different. It featured a full Starfleet crew dynamic, including a wider focus on all of Kirk's supporting faces. This wasn't just Kirk, Spock, and McCoy go back in time. Originally, the episode's emotional architecture included and depended on Lieutenant Janice Rand. Grace Lee Whitney's Rand was supposed to be there, prominently. The version Harlan Ellison first turned and used Rand in a pivotal role, giving her as much emotional utility as Bones. She was the one who interacted with the drug-addicted crewmen. She was the one who delivered key emotional contrast back aboard the Enterprise when things went wrong. And she was built into the narrative as the character who could verbally anchor Kirk's moral distress. Then the rewrites happened. Massive rewrites. Desperate rewrites. By the time the cameras rolled, Rand wasn't in the episode at all. And that happened right as the series was quietly beginning the process of phasing Grace Lee Whitney out. And that is why Shatner's favorite episode is also a tragedy for Rand fans. Shatner loves the final version of City on the Edge of Forever. No one has to question that. It is brilliant. It is heartbreaking. It is elegant minimalism. But imagine that same episode with Janice Rand on the landing party, and with her not being there simply because the real-world politics of 1960s network television demanded fewer women in power on the bridge. Rand's original role in the first draft would have altered fandom memory of who the core original series cast actually was. She might not have been forgotten after about a dozen early episodes. She might have been part of the Big Seven conversation in every convention book for decades. We lost a version of Trek where Rand wasn't disposable. Ellison's original story had a different villain, a different moral arc, a different version of what broke time. Organic chaos, human moral failure. It also had a different idea of who the Enterprise's emotional conscience figures were. In the TV-adapted version, Star Trek distilled down to the much cleaner triangle: Kirk, Spock, McCoy. And that tight triangle became the canonical iconic structure of TOS. Removing Rand didn't just remove a female presence on the landing party. It cemented the Big Three forever. What if isn't really fair in history, but here it's unavoidable. You can trace the erasure of Rand and the broader marginalization of other supporting players directly through this episode's rewrite and then to the rest of the series. Shatner loves City for what it gave Kirk, but rarely mentions what it took away from crew chemistry. When Shatner praises City, and he's always focused on the emotional heartbreak between Kirk and Edith Keeler, the nobility of sacrifice, the irresistible storytelling power of tragic necessity. He is absolutely right. But he's praising the version of City the world saw, not the version almost made. Not the version where the Enterprise wasn't just 3 men and occasional guest stars. Not the version where Rand gets to stand in history as more than the woman who got written out before the show found its true rhythm. You can feel the absence if you rewatch it knowing the production history. Watch the episode again with this knowledge. Notice how bare it feels when the action begins. When MC Coy jumps through the Guardian, the landing party has a weird emptiness to it. There is this strange minimal group dynamic, almost theatrical, like a play where half the cast called in sick on opening night. Imagine how different that scene plays if Rand is the one who leaps to Kirk's side, grabs his arm, tries to think through what could have changed history, in the exact empathetic emotional tone that Rand's character had been built to offer. It would hit deeper. You would see Kirk not just as captain, but as a man who commands the trust of the whole crew, including the women who served on the bridge. And Star Trek would have permanently recorded that one frame in fan consciousness. Instead, Rand vanished. Imagine if Deanna Troi disappeared from TNG Season 1 after 10 episodes. Imagine if Harry Kim vanished after Voyager Episode 10. Imagine if Hoshi Sato got removed right after Enterprise Episode 12. Imagine how differently fans would remember the chemistry of each entire show's crew. That's what happened to Janice Rand. And City on the Edge of Forever, Shatner's favorite, is the gravity well where that erasure became irreversible. The fan irony is that the episode revered for emotional honesty was born from behind-the-scenes dishonesty. Harlan Ellison was furious at the rewrites. He hated how the character relationships were narrowed. He hated how some of the darker ideas were cleaned up. He hated that the version shot was more acceptable television, but less explosive drama. The episode that became a monument to Trek storytelling was forged out of a lot of corporate limitation, a lot of production fear, and a lot of, we need to simplify this whether the script likes it or not. And one major casualty was the female crew member, that early Season 1 position as Kirk's trusted right-hand woman. William Shatner can love it, and fans can still grieve what got lost. The episode exists. It is brilliant. It deserves the praise it receives. But fans can hold two truths at the same time. One, City on the Edge of Forever is one of the greatest hours of TV sci-fi ever put to air. Two, the final rewrite wrongly cut a legacy-worthy Enterprise crew member who deserved a longer life in the franchise. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay with us.